The folks at Rivian were kind enough to give me an early look at what the free version of their autonomy software looks like. I got some hands-on time, and honestly, it's a lot better than I thought it was gonna be. That said, it's not perfect, and I do have thoughts. I did a full deep dive. Stay tuned. First, let's talk about what's free and what's not free. What's not free is pretty simple. There's two things included right now. Universal hands-free, which means that you can drive hands-free on any road that has lines on it. And number two, lane change on demand, which only works on pre-mapped highways, but you hit the turn signal and it changes lanes automatically. That's it. Those are the only two things that are in the paid tier right now. They do have two other things on their coming soon roadmap, and that's auto parking and end-to-end autonomy on the freeway. Basically, that means that it will automatically choose when to do lane changes, take interchanges for you, things like that. That said, they have also said that by the end of the year, they're targeting point-to-point autonomy, where you type in an address and it drives you from point A to point B 100% autonomously. So that's what you get with the paid tier. And we'll talk about the pricing and what I think about the pricing at the end of the video, because I do have thoughts about that. As far as the free tier goes, basically any of the driver assistance features that are the sort of running in the background safety features, things like blind spot monitoring, cross traffic, collision warnings, all of that kind of stuff is packaged into the free tier. The other addition is hands-on highway assist. So basically on any pre-mapped highway, it will lane center and it will do it with your hands on the steering wheel. It's not a hands-free system. It's more or less the same thing that's in Gen 1 vehicles or that was in Gen 2 when it first started shipping. Going into my testing, there were three concerns I had that I wanted to address. The first one is I wanted to find out if Highway Assist is using the same driving model that Universal Hands-Free is, or if it's using an older version of the software that they basically just copy-pasted from previous autonomy. The second thing I wanted to figure out is if it's going to monitor just touching the steering wheel or if it's also going to monitor your eyes watching the road. The reason I was concerned about this is a little over a month ago, Rivian had some blip with their backend servers that a good chunk of owners actually lost Universal Hands-Free temporarily. I was one of those owners, and during that brief period, it reverted to hands-on highway assist, like what ships with the free autonomy package. However, on that day when that happened, it was monitoring both eyes and touch, and it was very naggy. It was extremely annoying. It almost felt like it was more naggy than Universal Hands-Free that's only monitoring your eyes. So I wanted to see if it's going to be that sort of situation or if they've addressed that issue. And lastly, I wanted to find out if they addressed any of the weird pre-mapping issues that they had before we got Universal Hands-Free. You know, things like going on sections of freeway that suddenly said that there was no mapping data available, stuff like that. So without further ado, let's get into the drive. Okay, autonomy minus, here we go. So first off, we're not seeing the little engagement steering wheel icon available. And yep, nope. And it even specifically says highway assist is unavailable on this road. So once again, just for good measure, cruise control, absolutely. But highway assist, that is a nope. Ooh, the freeway entrance looks gnarly right now. Okay, so we're on a freeway on-ramp right now, and it is a metered on-ramp, so we're moving very quickly. This would be a great place to have highway assist. But if it's like highway assist was before, on-ramps are not included with the mapped area. So, yep. That is a big fat no. Can at least do adaptive cruise, so there's that. So there's at least some of the fatigue taken out of the just stop and go waiting for us to get up to the front of the meter here. And still no. What a letdown, man. You know, after getting used to having Universal Hands-Free that just works on anything with a line, it's kind of hard to take a step back here. All right, so now we're on. Okay, we get the availability little icon there in the corner. And we are on highway assist. Okay, so we want to check and see what the attention monitoring, both eyes and touch, is like. And we also want to see if it's running the same model. Just off of initial impressions with how it's behaving during this merge here, this absolutely feels like it's the same model running universal hands-free, which, you know, is a good thing, because it's a very competent model, especially on the highway. I wouldn't have expected any different, but, you know, you can never be too sure. So I'm glad we can at least, you know, just off of initial impressions, if it's not the same model, it's very similar. Let's go for a lane change here. And yep, immediately we're just getting the blind spot warning sound, which you do not get when you're running lane change on demand, because it mutes the sound because it's aware of the blind spot and it will try and speed match. This one doesn't speed match at all. It just waits for you to change the lane. And this is, you know, definitely another missed feature, because this is actually something that, you know, even in the early days of Gen 2, when it had, you know, hands-on highway assist only, the lane changes were a feature. But at this point, that is gone. So this is basically the same feature set as Gen 1, where it's hands-on mapped highways only. However, this is not your grandma's highway assist running the new model. It's definitely going to be a lot better with cut-ins and controlling speed and even just like more stable lane centering, because it is running on that more advanced model. And if they continue to run highway assist, the free tier, on the same model that they're running the paid tier, universal hands-free, you know, I can't imagine that they would diverge from that. But if they continue to run with that methodology, even though you're not paying for Autonomy Plus, you're still going to benefit from the improved models. And granted, on the highway, you may not feel that difference as much because highway driving is pretty stable. Highway driving is generally not where the system struggles at all. I'm going to do a lane change back over here. But yeah, I mean, like, you know, with things like the struggle with the vehicle phantom braking when you're passing a semi, things like that, you probably will notice a difference. But like general highway driving like this, the system handles it pretty well already. So the differences aren't going to be huge, but there are differences. So that will be kind of nice to have. Even if you're not paying, you will still continue to reap the benefits of that newer model there. One thing it does not understand yet is turn signals like that. So I had to intervene there to let that car in. Hopefully soon it gets that. So there's that initial impression. Okay, I'm gonna just enable again here. I'm gonna keep my hands off to the sides here and see how long it takes to yell at me for not putting my hands on the wheel. You know, I feel very confident with not having my hands on the wheel because it's the same system. Okay, there's the visual. No audible warning yet. And there's the audible warning. Okay. So there we are basically with hands-on highway assist. Okay, so one thing that I was actually kind of concerned with this was having the eye tracking in addition to steering wheel touch sensitivity. And the reason that I was concerned about that is because, okay, just side note, this is one thing I hope that this model improves on quickly is when you have lanes that are merging together, it loves to just center itself in the lane. I mean, you saw what it did. There wasn't like a bad thing that it did there getting to the center of that lane, but it's kind of unnatural. So again, as the model learns from Autonomy Plus, it will also trickle down into the free tier as well. But anyway, back to what I was saying about eye monitoring. A few months ago, there was actually this blip with the Rivian servers that actually caused a good chunk of owners to lose universal hands-free, and instead it reverted to hands-on highway assist only. And I was one of the owners that was affected by that. And interestingly, during that brief period of time, eye tracking was on in addition to the steering wheel touch, and it was naggy. Like it was for both touching the steering wheel and eye tracking. It had a very low threshold, lower threshold than universal hands-free, it felt like even. And it was just nag, 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 nag. It was very uncomfortable. So far, it seems that that's fixed. I haven't gotten a single eye tracking warning yet. In just a second here, I'm going to have my buddy Dre get in with me, and he's going to cover the camera to help me assess if it even is using the eye tracking camera, or what that's looking like. But so far, I have not gotten that eye tracking warning. So whatever issue that early half-baked version was having does not appear to be an issue now, which is very good news. The only time I've gotten an audible warning was when I was testing the touch sensitivity. So that's a good sign. So yeah, overall, I'm feeling pretty good about that. Let's check out the eye tracking. Okay, so I have Dre here to assist me, and we're gonna see if it nags me about looking at the camera. So Dre, if you would, cover the interior camera. Oh my gosh, I'm getting laser beamed by a reflection. What timing? Okay, so nothing yet. I'm getting laser beamed. Keep your eyes on the road. Okay, it is, oh, and audible warning. Okay, would you mind taking that off? Yep, and the audible or the warning is gone now. So it is in fact using the camera, but it appears to be less naggy. You know, prior to the Autonomy Plus trial ending, there was a setting in the privacy menu that allowed you to turn off the camera. And obviously, if you turn off the camera, that means you can't use universal hands-free because it's hands-free. This system, I'm curious if we turn off that setting, if it just won't monitor anymore, but it will continue to work with the hands-on system. So we're going to pull off the highway. We're going to turn off that setting and let you know. All right, so we're getting into settings here. We're going to go to data and privacy, and we'll scroll down to vehicle cameras, driver attention. It talks about highway assist and universal hands-free. Interesting. So it mentions both in there, even though highway assist is the hands-on system. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn off the camera. Turning off interior camera, this might take a minute. Interesting. Okay, well, the warning's gone, so I think it's off now. So I guess we'll see if it lets me engage highway assist without the camera. I do have some thoughts I want to share on the data sharing, but we'll come back to that. Okay, so right off the bat, I'm noticing that the little icon for highway assist is not showing. Oh, driver attention oh, I can't even read that whole sentence. That's very long, but it said something about driver attention detection being turned off.
Highway assist unavailable, driver attention detection turned off.
Yeah. I am not a fan of that. I do not see any reason, if it's a hands-on system that's monitoring your hands, I don't see any reason that the camera should also be on. And may I remind you, when the Gen 2 Rivians were first shipping, the camera didn't do anything at all. The camera was just inactive. It was collecting data, but it didn't do anything with driver assistance. It was touch only. So why we're doing touch and eyes, I don't really know, and I don't really like that. I will say, to its credit, the eye tracking seems to be very lax. It's very unobtrusive. Like, you know, as I was saying earlier, it wasn't nagging me. But on a hands-on system, I don't think I like that.
Have you tried using like sunglasses that it can't see through to see what it does?
It can see through sunglasses.
All of them though?
I've never had issues with it. I've tried probably 4 or 5 different pairs of sunglasses, and it's actually gone through.
Like, yeah, because so FSD, like my cabin camera that has the IR like lights behind it can see through most, but if you have like really polarized glasses, it can't see through them, and it will make you hold the steering wheel.
Interesting. Yeah, this one, I do know it is a different camera system than Tesla. This isn't a full RGB camera with infrared lights. This is straight up an infrared camera, a monochrome infrared camera. Oh, so that may have something to do with it.
Probably.
That said, R2 is supposed to have an RGB camera. So it'll be interesting to see how the R2 internal camera performs with sunglasses, but I've not had any issues with this one. But yeah, I didn't even think about the sunglasses thing with R2, so that may be worth checking into. What you just saw there was the majority of my on-camera testing. I did quite a bit of testing off-camera as well, but there's a couple clips I wanted to share with you from actually the very first drive that I did with the free software, and there's a couple of interesting things I wanted to show you there. One has to do with the mapping issue that I mentioned, and the other was an interesting bug/freebie situation. Take a look. Oh, it's gonna have us take over. Road information unavailable. Oh dear. Yeah, that's a message that I haven't seen for a long time and hoped to never see again. That is unfortunate. You know, because this is actually a freeway interchange that just goes from one freeway to another freeway. So I understand that they're trying to lock highway assist to just highways via mapping information. This feels a little bit heavy-handed though. That feels like a little bit of a strong restriction. Yeah, I can't do it. Even though it's literally just this one lane goes from one freeway to another. Nothing, no turns required. It is just a connector between one interstate and another. Okay, so we have it at least partway through there. That's rough. That's rough. Oh, we have automatic lane change. I'm pretty sure that's not supposed to be a thing on highway assist. So yeah, I wouldn't say that the mapping situation has been completely resolved. It's definitely improved. There's an area very near to my house where the edge of the freeway had some misaligned mapping information, and in previous versions of the software, even on some versions of Universal Hands-Free, there were just some weird quirks and disengagements because of that, and they seem to have addressed that in all versions of the software, so that's nice. But this interchange, it's just literally an interchange from one interstate to another, no turns, no merges, just a lane that goes from one road to another. That really should be mapped, but it's not, so mostly fixed, but not entirely. And yeah, with that freebie, lane change on demand is not supposed to be part of that free software. And for whatever reason, on the very first drive that I did, it had lane change on demand. So yeah, usually bugs are bad things, but in this case, it was a nice little freebie. But at the end of the drive, when I put it into park, lane change on demand went away like it was supposed to, and I was left with the complete free software suite. All right, let's dissect this a little bit. Honestly, it really surprised me with how much I liked it. Obviously, there were some things that I didn't love, and I'll talk more about that in just a moment. But first, I want to give them credit where credit's due. It's really nice that they're using the same, or at least what seems to be, the same model as Universal Hands-Free. That way, as Universal Hands-Free improves, you know, understanding turn signals and cut-ins and things like that, even the free version of Highway Assist will benefit from that. And that is a huge bonus for the people that don't necessarily feel like subscribing or buying it outright is worth it in their case. I think that's a huge bonus. There were some things that I disliked, and you already heard a couple of my thoughts, but I want to dive into that a little bit more. And speaking of deep dives, if you haven't seen it already, check out this video right here, where I put together a scoring system for the Universal Hands-Free Autonomy stack, because as this year progresses, it's going to get better, and I want to score and rate it the entire time. So hit subscribe if you're interested in following along on that journey. Also, you better believe that I'm going to be doing a deep dive on the Rivian Assistant when it comes out very soon. All right, now let's talk about the thing that I did not like about the software. I really don't like that you're forced to have the camera monitoring on for a hands-on system. It makes perfect sense for a hands-free system for driver attention monitoring, but it just seems a little over the top to force you to use it for a hands-on driver assist system. That said, I will give them credit. It seems to be far less naggy than it was when we had that little blip about like a month and a half ago. And it seems even less naggy than when you're using universal hands-free. So it's relatively unintrusive the way that they've handled it. I don't love that you're forced to have it on, but I will at least give them credit that it seems to be relatively lax. Also, on that note, I want to have a quick word about privacy concerns with a cabin camera in the vehicle. I want to give Rivian some huge praise here, because a lot of automakers basically just have a singular toggle. Either the camera's on and it's collecting data, or the camera's off and it's not collecting data, but you can't use the driver assistance features either. Rivian in their software has given us two separate toggles, one for the camera itself and one for image sharing. Basically what that means is you can have the camera on and it will do the driver attention monitoring and process all of that information on the vehicle itself, but no images from the camera are ever sent back to Rivian. They have the second toggle where you can turn on that image sharing so that you can help with the machine learning training and improving the system. But if you turn off that image sharing toggle, you can still have the camera on and functioning for driver assistance features. That is huge that Rivian has given us that kind of control over the privacy. And I hope that other automakers learn from it because they deserve huge praise for that. So those are my thoughts on the free system. Now let's talk about the pricing and if I think it's worth it to subscribe or buy it outright. I'll just right off the bat say, for me, of course, I'm going to pay for it because that's kind of my jam. I do autonomy stuff. I want to be on the cutting edge. Totally worth it for me and for the content creation so that I can create cool stuff for you guys as well so you can learn about the system. But is it worth it for you? Well, that's an interesting proposition. If you're someone who just uses it on a regular highway commute, honestly, the free system is really quite good. It covers most use cases. When you want to start using lane centering on highways that aren't mapped or maybe more rural roads, that's where universal hands-free makes a little bit more sense. As of right now, today, that's really the only big selling point that Autonomy Plus has. Lane change on demand is nice, but I don't think that's necessarily going to be the make or break decision maker for most people. So in my mind, if you're going to pay for it, it's really more about an investment in the future of where Rivian is going with their autonomy system. And, they have big plans, point to point by the end of the year. As far as the subscription versus the outright purchase, that's kind of interesting. It's $50 a month for the subscription or $2,500 for an outright purchase. And mind you, that is locked to the VIN. That is locked to your specific vehicle. So if you buy another Rivian, that does not travel with you to the new vehicle. Right off the bat, knee-jerk reaction, I would say that the $50 subscription makes way more sense than the purchase does. It's a little bit more than a 4-year payoff period before it starts to make financial sense to make the purchase. However, I would be very surprised if the pricing stays the same as it is now. I don't have any insider knowledge on this. This is just coming from me. But Rivian has invested a lot of money into autonomy. RJ Scringe has told us that that is the single largest expense that Rivian has put money into, autonomy. And with the relatively small number of vehicles that Rivian has sold, and even including the R2, they will sell a lot more, but still a relatively small fleet, $50 a month or $2,500 for an outright purchase is not going to pay back their investment for everything that they're putting into autonomy. My guess is as the system gains more capabilities, the pricing is going to go up. I wouldn't be surprised if by the time point-to-point autonomy gets released, the pricing has gone up by a significant amount. And that's where the $2,500 purchase actually starts to make a little bit more sense. I'm not one to give you financial advice. I'll leave that up to you. But I will say it could be a really good value to get in now at $2,500. No guarantees what the future holds, but for me personally, I have relatively high confidence in their ability to deliver. So far, they've really made quick advancements on their autonomy system. And so it might make sense to buy it for $2,500 now, because if I can have point-to-point self-driving for $2,500, that's actually a pretty good deal. But without further ado, I think it's time to upgrade back to Autonomy Plus. I've done all the testing that I want to do, so I'll go through it with you and you can see exactly what it looks like when you upgrade. Okay, so I'm in the upgrades menu of the settings app. And if we go into Autonomy Plus here, it gives us a nice little description of what's included. For now, it's just universal hands-free and lane change on demand and the pricing, but it does not let us actually purchase it in here. I don't know. I think it's kind of funny that we have an upgrade section, but the performance upgrade you have to do through the app. The autonomy you have to do through the app. Connect Plus is the only one that you can actually do on this screen. I'm curious if Rivian will change that in the future. But anyway, so it says scan this QR code to do it in the app. So I'm going to go ahead and scan that. Okay, and it takes us to the upgrade section. So we can see the performance upgrade, Connect Plus, allow in-vehicle purchases, literally just Connect Plus. All right, so I'm going to tap on autonomy here. Again, we get the same description. And for now, I'm going to do the monthly. I likely will end up doing the one-time purchase later, but just for now, I'm going to do the 1 month. And I'm going to hit subscribe now. Okay, your purchase is complete. You'll see the upgrade in your vehicle. You can find receipts in your account. So I'm curious how long it will take before it shows up inside of here, because inside of here, it's still showing as available instead of active. I'm curious if that requires a sleep cycle or a vehicle reset. Oh, looked like it took almost instantly. I went back to the driver assistance menu and it says Autonomy Plus instead of Rivian Autonomy Platform. And scrolling down, it looks like I have lane change on command right here. So I think we're good. Quick update, I actually couldn't activate universal hands-free right away. I had to park, get out, and watch the app and wait for it to fall asleep, and then get back in, and then universal hands-free worked. So don't get caught by surprise with that one. Okay, bye. So there you have it. Rivian Autonomy Plus and Rivian Autonomy Minus, as it were, the free version. Tell me, what do you think? Are you going to subscribe? Let me know down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Going in. And the third thing that I wanted to figure out was, what was the third thing I wanted to figure out? I legitimately don't remember. Oh, we got a climb, bye-bye. Rivian,